She used to call me a burden, not in passing, not in anger, but like it was my name. The burden. I was 12, trying to fit into a new family after my dad remarried. She made sure I never forgot I didn't belong, not with words of comfort, but with cold stares and cruel labels. Years later, after clawing my way from nothing to CEO, guess who submitted a job application to my company? Yeah, her. I didn't recognize the name at first, but the moment I saw her face, everything came flooding back. I was 12 when my dad remarried. I still remember the ceremony, small, simple, and filled with people I didn't know. My mom had passed away a few years earlier, and even though my dad did his best to hold our little world together, he wasn't the same after she was gone. He worked a lot, long hours, late nights, so when he introduced me to Claire, the woman who'd help us feel like a family again, I wanted to believe him. I wanted a mom again. Someone who'd notice when I was hurting. Someone who cared. At first, Claire played the part well. She smiled a lot, called me sweetheart, and told my dad how lucky he was to have such a polite little guy. But the performance didn't last long. When he wasn't around, her tone shifted, less sweet, more sharp. At dinner, she'd pass food to my dad and herself, then act surprised when I had to reach across the table for mine. She'd ask me questions she didn't wait to hear answers to. She'd forget to buy the cereal I liked, then say, "Oh, right, you're picky," as if that explained everything. It was little things at first, small, cold gestures that were easy to excuse. Maybe she was adjusting. Maybe I was imagining it. But the truth became harder to ignore the longer she stayed. She'd glance at me like I was a stray dog my dad had brought home. She'd talk over me, interrupt me, or tell me I was being dramatic when I tried to join in conversations. Then came the night I'll never forget. I was walking down the hall to get a glass of water when I heard her in the living room, whispering sharply to my dad. "He's just a burden," she said. "He makes everything harder. You and I could actually be happy if it weren't for him." I stopped in my tracks, gripping the edge of the hallway wall, heart thudding in my chest. My dad didn't respond, or if he did, I didn't hear it. I backed away, quietly as I could, and cried silently in my room for hours. After that, I couldn't unhear it. Burden became her favorite way to describe me, never to my face, not directly, but always in tone, always between the lines. Her kindness turned into sarcasm, her indifference into coldness. I began to shrink around her presence, avoiding the kitchen, skipping meals when she was home, pretending I was asleep to dodge interaction. My dad never noticed. Or maybe he did and chose not to see it. Either way, I was alone in that house. Not physically, but emotionally, a ghost drifting through hallways, invisible in the one place I should have felt safe. And that's how it went for years. Neglected, ignored, constantly reminded that I didn't belong. The day I turned 18, I left. No ceremony, no hugs, no goodbyes. Just a duffel bag, a half-charged phone, and the quiet determination that I was never coming back. I didn't have money. I didn't have a plan. But I had one thing that kept me moving. I couldn't live in that house another second. Not with her. Not with the way she made me feel, like I was always in the way, like my existence was something to apologize for. The first few months were brutal. I crashed on couches when friends would let me. Took every minimum wage job I could get. Dishwashing, janitorial work, fast food. During the day I worked, and at night I studied. Community college first, then online courses when I could afford a laptop. There were nights I ate nothing but peanut butter crackers and drank water from public fountains. But every time I thought about giving up, I heard her voice in my head, "You're just a burden." I carried that phrase like a scar. It haunted me, drove me, lit a fire I didn't know I had. Still, her voice wasn't the only one in my head. I started to hear new ones, Professors who told me I had potential, managers who said I was reliable, classmates who looked to me for help. It was disorienting at first. I struggled to believe them. Every compliment felt like a lie. Deep down, I still wondered if they'd eventually see what she saw in me, a problem, not a person. That's what growing up like that does to you. It makes you question even kindness. It makes you doubt your worth, even when you're doing everything right. But slowly, those new voices started to take root. I met mentors, people who saw value in me I couldn't see in myself. One professor in particular, a retired entrepreneur, became like a second father. He didn't coddle me. He challenged me. And he believed in me with a quiet, unshakable certainty that changed everything. I began to see my past differently, not as something that defined me, but as something I had survived. That label, burden, no longer felt like a weight I had to carry. It felt like proof that I had climbed out of something heavy and left it behind. Claire didn't break me. She built the fire inside me. And once I realized that, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. It started with a side hustle during college. Nothing fancy, just me and a cheap laptop working out of the corner of a shared apartment. I had this idea for a small business consulting service. Most students were looking for internships or part-time jobs, but I wanted to build something of my own. I knew what it felt like to be on the outside, to be underestimated. I figured maybe I could help small businesses, the ones that didn't have the money for big agencies, grow smarter, leaner, faster. My first attempt flopped. So did the second. I made mistakes, tons of them. I undercharged, overpromised, hired freelancers I couldn't pay yet. I built a website no one visited and ran ads no one clicked on. Every setback felt like a punch to the gut, but I kept going. The voice in the back of my mind, the one that still sounded like her, kept whispering that I was wasting my time, that I was still the burden. But something stronger was starting to take hold. That fire, that defiance. I wasn't just trying to build a business, I was trying to prove to myself that I could become more than what she said I was. By the time I was in my mid-20s, things finally started to click. Word of mouth spread. Clients started coming to me instead of the other way around. I hired my first assistant, then a designer, then a developer. We operated out of a tiny co-working space with second-hand desks and folding chairs, but to me, it felt like a palace. We had something most places didn't: heart. I made a promise early on: every person I hired would be someone I believed in. Not just for their skills, but for who they were. I didn't care if they had a perfect resume. I cared if they were hungry, kind, honest. I cared if they knew what it felt like to be doubted and wanted to rise anyway, because I knew what that felt like. I had lived it. As the business grew, so did our reputation. We got featured in a small business blog, then a local magazine. One day, I got an email from an angel investor who said she loved our mission. A few months later, we moved into a real office: glass walls, white boards, a front desk with our logo on it. I stood in that lobby the first day we opened and just took it in. Everything around me had once lived only in my head. And through it all, I held on to one truth: every person I hire is someone I want to believe in, because I know what it feels like when no one does. It started like any other Tuesday. I was reviewing some flagged applications that had been escalated by HR, candidates for upper-level positions, the kind that needed my personal approval. I usually skimmed for key points: experience, compatibility, recommendations. But one file caught my eye, not because of the resume itself, but because of the last name. I paused. It wasn't an uncommon name, so at first, I didn't think much of it. Still, something about it lingered in the back of my mind. When I clicked the profile open and saw the attached photo, my chest tightened. The hair was different, shorter, grayer, but the face was unmistakable. It was her. Claire. My former stepmother. The woman who had spent years making sure I never felt like I belonged. She had applied for a managerial role in our client relations department. The irony hit me like a freight train. She had no idea who she was applying to work for. No idea whose name was on the founding documents. I read through the application again, slower this time. Her last name had changed, likely remarried again, but the resume was solid. Decades of experience, impressive metrics, good references. I sat back in my chair, stunned. My team had no idea who she was to me. HR had only escalated it because she checked every box professionally. From their perspective, she was a great candidate. But to me, she was a ghost from a past I had spent years digging myself out of. Seeing her face brought everything rushing back. The cold stares across the dinner table, the whispered insults, the night I heard her say I was a burden. For hours I just sat with it. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. The emotions were messy: rage, confusion, disbelief, and a strange sense of power I hadn't felt before. The woman who once treated me like I was nothing had walked straight into my world, asking for a place in it. I didn't respond to HR that day, or the next. I needed time to think. This wasn't just about business. It was personal. Too personal. I had built a company on empathy, on second chances. But did she deserve one? Could I be fair? Or would I let the past dictate my decision? For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure what the right move was. I only knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, I had all the power now. I decided to handle the interview myself. I wanted to see her face up close, to hear her voice, to understand what she'd become. But I kept my identity under wraps, just another hiring manager doing my job. The day arrived, and I waited in the conference room, trying to keep my emotions in check. When she walked in, she was polished and professional, well-dressed in a tailored suit, confident in her stride. She was older, yes, but the lines on her face and the set of her jaw were unmistakable. It was her. Claire. She smiled politely, extended a firm handshake, and settled into the chair across from me. There was no flicker of recognition. To her, I was just the person behind the desk. The interview began like any other. I asked about her experience, her leadership style, and her goals. She answered smoothly, practiced but genuine. Then I shifted gears, carefully, deliberately. Have you ever mentored a struggling teen? I asked casually. She blinked, hesitated for a moment, then said, I've worked with many people facing challenges, yes. Mentorship is important. I nodded, then pushed further. Do you believe people can grow beyond what others expect of them? Her smile tightened, and she glanced away. I suppose so. Everyone has potential if given the chance. There was something in her voice, an avoidance, a careful dance around whatever those questions really meant. I could see the walls rising, the discomfort hiding behind her calm exterior. The room grew quiet. I waited. Finally, I leaned in and said, Do you remember calling someone a burden? Her face changed instantly. The polite mask dropped, replaced by something raw: shock, guilt, maybe fear. Recognition dawned in her eyes as the past came rushing back. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she swallowed hard and looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I had seen this woman's worst side years ago. Now, I was seeing her confronted by the consequences of it. She stumbled through her excuses like a script she had rehearsed 1,000 times. I was going through a hard time back then, she said, voice wavering. You were difficult, ungrateful. Maybe I just didn't know how to handle it. I listened, saying very little. There was no point in arguing. Her words felt hollow, a fragile shield against the weight of years she had tried to ignore. She shifted in her chair, trying to regain control. That was the past, she said firmly. We've both changed. Maybe we can start over. Her eyes searched mine, looking for a sign, a crack in the armor. I leaned forward. Yes, I've changed, I said quietly, but with steel beneath the words. I built this company from scratch. From nothing. Every late night, every failure, every sleepless moment was mine to bear. And now you're sitting here, asking to be part of it. That's when the shock hit her like a punch. Her eyes widened, the realization sinking in. She knew exactly who I was. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Inside, I wrestled with my next move. Revenge would have been sweet, the chance to remind her of all the pain she caused. But as I looked at her, finally humbled, stripped of arrogance, I felt something else rising in me. Empathy. Power. The kind of strength that doesn't break others, but builds new paths. After a long pause, I said, "You can work here. But understand this, respect is not optional. This company is built on trust, on valuing people, on giving second chances. If you want to be part of it, you have to commit to that. No exceptions." She nodded slowly, humbled, the fight drained from her. "I understand," she whispered. Later, I told HR everything. The backstory they hadn't known, the years of silent suffering, the trauma beneath the resume. They listened, stunned, but supportive. We adjusted the onboarding process to include clear expectations and support systems, not just for her, but for anyone joining our team. This wasn't just about hiring someone with experience. It was about rewriting a story, one that could have ended in bitterness but instead opened the door for growth, forgiveness, and a chance to redefine what family and respect really mean. Some people wait their whole lives for revenge. I waited, and when I had the chance, I chose something else. I chose to show her what it looks like when the person she tried to break became the boss she had to answer to. I don't forgive her. Not fully. But I've outgrown the pain she caused. And maybe, just maybe, seeing me succeed is the greatest accountability she'll ever face. I'm no longer her burden. I'm her employer. And that truth, that's the real power.